This question has to do with healing, correcting chronic physical conditions.
Yours or someone else's?
Mine.
So chronic, what does the word chronic mean to you in terms of what we've been talking about here? Chronic means
I've been thinking about it
a
for a long
practiced
time.
thought. Chronic means a thought I continue to think.
But it kind of snuck up on me. I didn't want it. It just kind of happened.
People say it just came out of the blue, and we say, not really, it came out of the oblivious, meaning you weren't at that time so aware of the importance of satisfaction. So you let yourself think thoughts that aren't satisfying, watch television for a little while, and those advertisements will cause you to feel dissatisfaction about your physical apparatus. They will convince you that you are vulnerable when you're only as vulnerable as you believe that you are. And so the question is?
Well, when there's physical evidence in this time-space reality by X-ray or MRIs.
But physical evidence doesn't mean diddly squat. Physical evidence is just this point in time and what the vibrational state is. That really is all that it is. But we acknowledge that it is more difficult once something is manifested to focus otherwise. But that's why you practice on easy things first.
So what would be the best course to change it from what it is?
To get your mind off of it, because when you put your mind on it, you're going to repeat the same patterns of thought.
So to not think about it at all?
But that's tricky. When you say, I'm not going to think about that, you're thinking about that thing you're not going to think about. So you got to find something else to think about, something else that you allow to gather enough momentum that it is satisfying.
The opposite of it, or just something
The
different?
opposite of it isn't a good idea, because the opposite of it just reminds you of it. Because it's the same subject, just different ends of the stick. That's what goes wrong with a lot of people. It's like putting a happy face sticker on the empty gas gauge in your car. If you don't see it, then maybe you won't end up on the side of the road with no fuel. Every subject's two subjects, wanted on one end and absence of it on the other end. And often when you activate a subject, every time that you activate a subject, you lean in the direction of what your practice thought is. So that's why thinking other thoughts that are off the subject is such a good idea. Our favorite and very emphatic story, we've been telling it for years, and many of you could tell it as well as we do. We were talking with a woman on the telephone many years ago when Esther was doing telephone consultations, or allowing us to. And this woman had some situations in her life that were not pleasing to her, and she wanted us to help her to find a solution to them, to fix them. And she wasn't following us. She wasn't really ready to be ready. She wasn't ready to accept that she creates her own reality. Not really. And she wasn't believing that she was the cause of anything that was happening. She believed it was outside forces. And so we knew that in this moment, even with all that we knew, it was not going to light up for her, not right now. So we thought that we would set her up for something that could come to her later if she could hear us. So we said to her, well, let's talk about something else. And she said, like what? And we said, let's talk about blue glass. Well, that was really annoying to her, because why would we want to talk about blue glass? She had real problems. But we persisted, and we talked about blue glass for well over a minute. We described textures and the opaqueness or clarity, the variance in colors. She didn't come with us, but we talked about blue glass. And then we said, now let's talk about butterflies. Equally annoying to her. But for over a minute, we described different butterflies, sizes, colors, origins. Again, she was not happy. Then we said, let's talk about feathers. We were very good as we talked about feathers for well over a minute. And then she was annoyed. She hung up. Esther was in the room alone, and Esther thought that did not go well. And she said to Jerry, this woman will probably ask for her money back. And that's all right with me. And then Jerry and Esther, they were in San Diego at the time, or in La Jolla. And Jerry said, let's go to lunch. So they went over to their favorite place, George's, and parked the car some distance away. And as they got out of the car, Esther is headed down the sidewalk, and she feels this impulse, because Esther is really in the receiving mode, this impulse to go into this shop. Now, that's not unusual for Esther. And she dragged Jerry in. It was not unusual for him to be dragged in. And it was a very deep, narrow storefront, but deep. And they went back into a room and another room and another room. And there on the back wall was a display of blue glass, ceiling to floor, wall to wall. And Esther didn't make the correlation. And they didn't want any blue glass. And so they just wandered for a moment or two and then left the shop. And now they went and had lunch at George's. And then they went down to what is called the Cove, such a beautiful place in La Jolla. And as they were walking across this apron of grass, a flurry of butterflies surrounded them that was so intense they had to stop talking so that they didn't eat them. And still, Esther's not making an association, and Jerry didn't hear the conversation anyway. It was just amazing and quite delightful. And they just sort of stood still while the butterflies flapped all over them and left. And then once the air cleared, from across the way, a little boy is running toward them. And Jerry said, he looks like he knows us. He looks like he knows you. And he walked right up to Esther and handed her a feather. And then Esther remembered that within a couple of hours of those subjects being activated, that the universe delivered to her in very extraordinary ways all of those topics. Now, what we want you to hear about that is that Esther, and that woman also, for that matter, had no resistance about those subjects. And when you activate a subject with no resistance, it will present itself to you in a very satisfying and delightful way. So if you can get off the subject of what's bothering you and on the subject of things that are not bothersome, and you then consciously witness the universe's gathering of components and presenting them to you, you will show yourself your invincibility. You will show yourself your power to be in alignment with this energy that creates worlds. And in that process, whatever it is that you are currently desiring, whatever the balance of your desire is, then comes about.
Abraham, I have to tell you this. Before I ever heard you say that story, and I have heard you say it before, when we listened to you, my wife's daughter was going to school in San Diego, and we went to visit her. And we ate at George's. We've been in that shop with the blue glass.